Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, I have Brandon Eastman. Brandon Eastman helps performance-driven leaders break through their limitations, perform at their peak, and achieve their biggest goals. He's on a mission to make a 1% difference in the world by empowering leaders to uncover their gifts and abilities and use them to positively impact others. He knows that the world is full of distraction and noise. We all know that. But it's important, more important than ever, to prioritize our mental and emotional health so we can truly live an extraordinary life. He models his work on 5 P's: having a plan, surrounding yourself with the right people, uncovering your purpose, making progress, and having the power to fuel it all. So Brandon, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So how did we get to this point in time? Share your journey, please.
It is the wonderful new world of Zoom and everything that it has allowed us to do in this past year and a half. So I met Simon Town, who I know has been on the podcast as well. Incredible individual. If you haven't met him, you need to meet him, whoever's listening. But I met Simon through myself and Christine Smith and our other business partner, Brian Rollo. We were putting on a Level Up Your Business event, and it was virtual. And it was at, I think it was 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern time. So Simon joined, and it was like midnight his time over in the UK.
Well, it's 5 hours. Yeah, it's beyond midnight. It's the next day.
Yeah. But he made it a point to join, and he mentioned that it was like 1 a.m. where he was at the end of the event. And I was like, 1 a.m. I was like, this guy prioritized this event, stayed up for it so that he could take something away from it. I was like, this is someone I got to meet. So I did. I met him, and he introduced me to Dr. Rob Bell, and who's also an incredible guy. He's going to be on my show pretty soon here. And Dr. Rob Bell was like, you need to meet Frank, and you need to do so by joining the networking hub that Frank hosts every single month. And I was like, well, yeah, sign me up. I'm definitely in for that. And it led me to meeting you and being here, having this wonderful conversation with you.
Well, I appreciate that. Let's talk about your business and how you got going into it. You have a sales background. Please share.
Yeah. So I'm 27 now. I started in sales right out of high school, actually. So I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in high school. So what I did was I graduated high school. I started taking online courses to be a lawyer. And what happened in the middle there was I got this sales job for Verizon Wireless.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is going to be a nice job to pay the bills as I'm going to school here, getting my degree. And the first couple months go by, and I'm making more money than I've ever anticipated I'd make. I mean, as you know, sales is a very lucrative industry, right? Mm-hmm. I was 100% commission. So it was really whatever you put in, you get out of it. And I was doing really well. I've always been a natural talker. I was always naturally expressive. I've always liked teaching ideas to people. And if you're a good teacher, generally you can be molded into a great salesperson. I think we're all in sales, but that's another conversation.
Sure.
So after my first year in this company, I earned more than I ever even wanted to earn as a lawyer. Like, just to be transparent, like in my mind, lawyers were like making 60 grand a year back when I was 18, my 18-year-old brain. So I was like, well, I'm making that in sales. So why would I continue going to school and racking up thousands of dollars of debt in order to make the same amount that I'm already making here with this sales company? Mm-hmm. So I dropped out, and it was one of the best decisions I could have made because it's led me to where I am now. But what ended up happening, Frank, was I was with this company for several years. My income kept growing and growing and growing, but my happiness and my overall satisfaction with my own life was decreasing and decreasing over time. And I was purely focused on the money in sales for the longest time because that was what society looked at, right? How much money to make? Oh, wow, you're making the six figures. Wow, you're 19 years old. That's incredible. I had the nice car, had the nice apartment, right? We had everything we could have wanted, had the beautiful guitars, all those things. I had what society thought was accepted, but I was 60 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I'm 21 years old at that time, right? So I'm 260 pounds. I was over $30,000, almost $30,000 in credit card debt.
Oh my God, you're making all that money and you still racked up debt?
Yeah. I learned it's not what you make, it's how you use it.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And I was really spending much more than my means. And it came to the point, Frank, where I was like, I have to change something. Right. And I didn't really even know what I had to change. But I mean, I'm sure you've heard the expression, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Right. And that teacher appeared, and his name was Keith. And he's like a big power lifter. I mean, big literally and figuratively. I mean, he lifts, his next goal is to bench press 950 pounds, and just an extraordinary individual. But he wasn't this person at the time. He was fit, but not this fit. And he took me under his wing, and he's like, Brandon, before you can be a leader in this company, because that was my goal at the time, he's like, you got to take care of you. You've got to take care of yourself. And someone's not going to follow someone who can't even take care of themselves. And it was really harsh to hear that at the time, but he took me under his wing. And the first thing I put a focus on was my health. And this is like, we talk about sales, we talk about making money, we talk about entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, whatever it might be. Very rarely does the conversation come into play. Well, how do you take care of yourself physically during this? How do you take care of yourself emotionally? And this transformation that I made working out with Keith, I mean, within 6 months, I lost over 60 pounds. Within 8 months, I was able to eliminate all the credit card debt that I had. So I'm making these life changes, but at the same time, it's helping me improve my performance professionally. I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm rising up into leadership. Now I'm training salespeople. And now I'm having people ask me, Brandon, how did you do this? How did you lose the weight? How did you get rid of the debt? What did you do to get to where you are now? Because I was like the role model for the newer salespeople coming in. And honestly, I got kind of tired of answering the questions. Not that I don't love those conversations, but I took all those lessons that I followed myself and I put them into a book, right? And at first it was meant to be an ebook, but after getting into it, I decided, why not just make this into an actual physical book that I can hand to people when they ask me these questions that can help them. And that was really the catalyst that caused me to branch away from sales full-time as a market trainer to working with salespeople from all different companies, working with business leaders, working with solopreneurs, to help them optimize their life, which in turn optimizes their income and optimizes their life professionally at the same time.
Wow. What a transformation. Yeah, I mean, it's, I had debt coming out of school, but I assumed I would have debt. It was student loan debt, it was all kind of factored in. The kind of debt you're talking about is really not factored in. It's a function of living beyond your means. It's not planned debt, that was probably very scary. And you were probably when it went away and you'd lost all this weight, you were probably very optimistic about life, because it's like, look what I did in the last, 9 months, I think you said.
Yes.
What can I do in the next 9 months or the next 9 years, following this little pattern. So, I mean, did Keith help you at all with that, or just basically say, hey, you got to figure it out? Or
he helped me. He was my mentor throughout that time.
Okay.
And I'm still friends with him to this day. He's still a role model for me, just very different paths we've gone on, obviously. Sure. But he brought me to the gym with him 3 days a week. So I worked out consistently with him. He didn't help me as much with the financial side as the fitness side, but I believe that once you tackle that area of life that's holding you back the most, like for me, it was my fitness. It got to the point, Frank, where I literally didn't want to leave my apartment because I didn't want people who might know me back in the day to see who I'd become, right? Overweight, unhappy. I was balding at the time. It was before I shaved my head and made the decision, right? So he really didn't just help me to get in shape, but he helped me to craft a new self-image. He helped me to change and transform the way that I saw myself. And for anyone out there who knows, once you tackle that one area that's holding the rest back, it's like the rising tide that raises all boats. Everything else improves. But as a result, like I walked differently. I breathed differently. When you eliminate that debt, like you said, your confidence skyrockets from there. Like you said, you feel like you can do anything because you just saw what you could do in this limited amount of time. Imagine what you could do in a year, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all the common thread through the things you're talking about, the hair loss thing aside. What are you going to do about that, right? I always say, God bless Michael Jordan, because he made it cool to shave your head.
Yeah.
But the common thread rolling through all that is discipline. Just having the discipline. I mean, that's really what it's about. Somebody once said to me that you can tell the maturity of somebody by looking at their health, their finances, and their relationships. And those are three key areas. People who are financially struggling, or they're struggling with their health, with their weight, or they're struggling with their relationships. They're failed marriages, failed whatever. Doesn't have to be marriages, but going from one relationship to the next. And I think all those things take discipline. They really do.
Yeah,
they really do.
And what I found too is discipline's very important, but if you don't have the hunger, if you don't have that relentlessness inside of you to do whatever it takes in order to even put the discipline into action, like discipline to me is, okay, my calendar says I'm going to the gym 3 days a week, right? But it takes something to actually put your shoes on, walk out the door, get in the car, drive to the gym, walk in and get into your routine. What I found is, it really, just from working with so many people, you really have to know why you want something. You really have to dig down and ask, what is this going to do for 30-year-old Brandon? What is this going to do for me 5 years in the future? Why do I want to amend this relationship? Why do I want to eliminate this debt? Why do I want to get in shape? For me, it was to be a leader in the company at the time, right? My why has changed significantly now, obviously. But for others, it might be so you can see your kids graduate. It might be so you can watch your youngest play soccer in college, right? It might be so you can watch them walk down the aisle. You might want to quit smoking so that you can breathe better, you can live longer, right? It's all about the why. If the hunger is not there, then in my opinion, the discipline doesn't even exist.
No, I totally agree. I worked out as a kid. I had a bet with my cousin that I could do 10 chin-ups. This is all the way back in 5th grade. I had a chin-up bar on my door, and every time I went in, I did 3 chin-ups, and every time I left, I did 3 chin-ups. I had like 2 weeks to get ready, right?
Yeah.
And I just did that for 2 weeks, and then once I don't know, I did 12. I won the bet. I just kept it going, and I'd get up in the morning and do push-ups, and there was nothing ever really crazy. But for the longest time, I kind of kept that going. And then when I got out of law school, I did it through law school, just working out every day. I kind of lost track of it for a few years. And then when my kids were young, it's like, I need to get back into this, just to kind of have that discipline. I'm not going to bench press 900 pounds. I don't even bench press anything over 100 pounds. I just do lots of reps. But the discipline of continually doing things, reading a little every day, writing a little every day. It comes back to networking as well. Just making contacts every day. Who am I reaching out to? Who am I reconnecting with? And just kind of making sure that you're always, and I've always listened for people who have their little regiments, sending out 5 thank yous every week. It's like, oh, that is so cool. That is so easy. Why didn't I think of it? Right. Yeah. And you kind of wonder what'll happen with this, because like you say, a little bit of discipline got me here. What if I try discipline in a whole new area? What's that going to do for me? Going back to your introduction, your mission is to make a 1% difference in the world by empowering leaders to overcome, to uncover their gifts and abilities. Talk about the 1% difference, if you will.
I think that I can't say it any better than what you just said, actually. Just those small things that you do every single day that seem very, very small. They seem very minute, but those are the things that make the biggest difference. Like, to take this 1% difference to networking now, I met Simon right? He introduced me to Dr. Rob Bell. I didn't meet all these individuals in a day, right? One day I met Simon, right? Then Simon one day introduced me to Dr. Rob Bell. At the same time, I'm doing what I can to introduce them to other people who can help them, further them, whatever it might be. Like you mentioned, reciprocity, right?
Right.
So I meet Dr. Rob Bell and we have a great conversation about mental toughness, everything else he's working on. He sends me a copy of his book, right? That happened on another day. So our call here, our call there. I read his book, and the foreword of the book, his name escapes me, but it's the drummer for John Cougar Mellencamp's second and third studio album, right? So I'm a huge John Mellencamp fan. So I read the foreword of this book and I'm like, oh my God, like, how does he know the drummer for John Cougar Mellencamp? So I go on LinkedIn after learning what I know about networking now. I used to be so afraid to reach out to people. Like, what if they don't want to talk to me? What if I'm a burden to them? But now I realize like value can take many different forms. Like you don't need to give someone business immediately. You don't need to have 40 different people that can know them. It's meet them. And then, like you say, you never know what's going to happen after that. You can meet someone who'd be perfect for them. So that's what I did. I went on LinkedIn. I found the drummer. His name is in here. I feel bad I don't know it right now, but
that's fine.
We're meeting a lot of people, right? So I reach out to him and I say, hey, I loved the foreword of the book that you wrote for Dr. Rob. I said, Dr. Rob's a friend of mine, and I would love to have a conversation with you, even have you on my podcast. And he gets back within a couple of days. He's like, yeah, I'd love to be on your podcast. I'd love to talk about my music journey and everything else I'm working on now. And I was like, I called my dad immediately and I'm like, Dad, guess who I'm going to be interviewing on my podcast? And he's like, who? And I said, the drummer for John Cougar Mellencamp back in the 80s and 90s. And my dad was like, oh my God, that is so cool. Like he's a huge John Cougar fan. Just like, I don't think there's many people who aren't big John Cougar fans.
Yeah.
But the 1% difference is just that. What can you do today in order for you to make just 1% movement in the direction that you want to improve in? Obviously, the presupposition is you already know what direction you want to move in, right? You already know how you're looking to grow. And once you know the area you want to grow in, well, you always know the next step. You always know what you can do right now, whether it's educate yourself with the book or meet a person from this specific industry or get the gym membership or don't go to buy the pack of cigarettes or eliminate something from your life. There's always the next step that you know. So what is that 1% difference for you today? Because we did the math, actually, my friend and I, because I used to say, if you're 1% better every single day for a year, how much better will you be? And everyone's like 365%.
No, it's like probably 500% because it multiplies or it.
And that's what I thought. What I thought. And I had a friend of mine actually take a calculator out and he's like, well, actually, Brandon is a mathematician guy. He's like, it's exponential growth. He said, so if you take 1% over a year to the power of 365, right? It's actually 37% growth in a year. But you know what? We overestimate what we can do in a year. This is Tony Robbins' quote. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we heavily underestimate what we can do in 5, because then you do the math. Then you're 150% better. Then you're 500% better after 5 years. Like the reality is 5 years is going to pass, right? It's going to go by. But what if instead of just letting it pass, what if you were intentional instead and you focused on this one tide in your life, whether it's fitness or your finances or your relationships, and you focused on just making one of those areas 1% better every day? Imagine what you'd be able to accomplish once you started to be intentional about this growth. That's the 1% difference.
Yeah. I had somebody else on the podcast. You may have met him or not. He was on the Networking Hub, or Jerry Cantalupo. I don't know if you had a chance to meet him.
I haven't met him yet.
Okay. But anyhow, he talked about 1%. He was in the Navy. And that's what, when I saw this 1%, I was like, okay, where's he going with this? His whole thing is, and he says, if you're on a ship and you shift it 1 degree, right? 1%, 1 degree. They're different. I get it. But same concept. You shift it 1 degree. Nobody can notice. On the ship, nobody notices. But where you end up over time is drastically different. That was his lesson, which I thought was really powerful. And he was a high school principal, and he's now a payroll guy. But same sort of thing. It's just like it just kind of compounds over time, more and more and more. Let's talk about your business. Things you're doing now. I know you're doing some group coaching and certainly individual coaching. if you'd kind of share about some of the things that you do and, how, who would be good connections for you? Obviously somebody who's 60 pounds overweight and $30,000 of credit card debt. You're the poster child for it can be done. But what sorts of things, what sorts of people?
I love to help people who they're doing well with what they're doing, right? They're in sales. They're doing well in sales. They're in business. Their business is doing well, but they're just kind of going through the motions. They have a family, maybe they've got a full-time job. Maybe they're starting a business at the same time. They're trying to figure all of these different things out, but they don't really see themselves making a ton of progress. They want to go faster. They want to be better, right? That's the name of the company, Be Better Industries.
Yep.
And we take these individuals, we find out really what's most important to them. We figure out, well, what's your outcome, right? In the next 6 weeks, where do you want to be? Let's put a year on the back burner for now. Like, where do you want to be in 6 weeks? What can you accomplish this month to get to where you want? What I find, Frank, is a lot of people don't even really know what they want. They have like this convoluted idea of, well, I want to be happy. That's what like everyone's been saying to me lately. Oh, I just want to be happy. And I think we all do, right? But what no one really takes the time to define what that happiness or even what success in their life really even looks like to them. So one of the first things we do is we figure out, well, what does success mean to you, right? And that itself is like the question of the century. Once they define that, they start to magically see themselves making progress towards what it is makes them feel successful, because everything that we deal in generally is based on emotion, right? Emotion is the driving force of our life. So I love working with salespeople and business people who are already doing well, who want to do better, who want to optimize their life, to have more time with their family, to have more time for the things that truly light them up, fills them with joy, which as a result brings their business and brings their performance to the next level. Those are the people I love to work with. We do it through one-on-one coaching, but I love doing it through our group events. There's something that I run called the Be Better Bootcamp, which is it's a 6-week life performance transformational program. And it really is. We have a lot of coaches in there. We have salespeople. I love working with salespeople, obviously, because my own history in that field. And we bring them through 6 weeks where they go from where they are to building massive momentum, this snowball of momentum, to help further them, to bring them where they want to be. Obviously, they're not achieving like the world's grandiose goals in 6 weeks, but it gives them that necessary momentum in order to really just kickstart their nervous system, to have them thinking different thoughts, which then creates different results.
That's powerful. You talked about people saying, hey, I want to be happy. It reminded me there's a study out there that shows that people who focus on being happier actually become more miserable. And people who focus on, the fundamentals of happiness, I want to spend more time with my kids, those things you can get your hands around. They end up being happier because there's a measurable there.
Exactly.
What is it? The hedonic principle or the hedonic treadmill, where it's essentially if you won the lottery tomorrow, a year from now, you'd be complaining about riding in first class. Oh, that first class sucks, right? And rich people problems. Problems.
Yes.
What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you? Or you have a website, put you on there, send you to your websites, bebetterindustriescom.
Yeah, that's it. So it's bebetterindustries.com. You can visit my website. I would love to have a conversation with you. So if you want to actually have a conversation with me, you can go through the website, but you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat with you about what your goals are. I'd love to chat with you about who you're looking to connect with. And I just love hearing people's visions. What I found is a lot of people, when I meet them, I ask everyone I meet, like, what's the vision that you're working towards? Like, my vision is 5-10 years from now, I want to be speaking in stadiums of over 10, 20, 30,000 people, not just me. I want to bring in all these experts that I've met over the years, which is why networking is so powerful for me right now, is I'm working to meet all these different experts who can come in, join me during these resort summits and during these giant stadium events, so that we can help a ton of people at once in person with the energy in the air, really transform their lives. So connect with me on LinkedIn. We can have a chat about your vision, what you're looking to achieve. And that's probably the best way that you can reach me for that conversation.
I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the platform, and it's been great knowing you.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.